Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday six-pack.
Let's go into our Week 7 Sunday six-pack. Of course, the 0-6, Week 6, so the score remains 26-9. 2 points for our first two, a point for the third, point for the total, which we'll give out in our next section, and a point bonus if you sweep. Stuck, you are up first, week number 7. Where are you going?
All right, it's time to get hot, or maybe I'm just a fade now in the NFL, and that provides a value too. But I think it's time we get rolling here. So for my first pick of the Week 7 Sunday six-pack, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks +3 at the Atlanta Falcons. Number one, I just can't get to this number. Number two, I have these teams power rated basically even on a neutral field. Atlanta, not one of the best home field advantages in the NFL, and NFL home field advantage is not worth 3 points anywhere in today's day and age. From a spot perspective, Seattle's lost 3 in a row. You look at road dogs, 3 straight losses, about 60% against the spread. Road dogs with extra time to prepare against teams on normal rest, about 60% against the spread historically. I think this is a great opportunity to buy low on the Seahawks. You have to remember, so they started off 3-0. They had a very easy schedule. So you knew that they weren't, as good as their record indicated. But then their next 3 games were as brutal of a stretch as you'll find this season in the NFL. They had 3 games in 11 days, and they were dealing with major injuries across their defense. And that's problematic when you're going up against, especially the Lions and the 49ers, 2 of the best offenses in the NFL. Well, they should, so the rest, just the extra rest, should serve them well. They should be healthier here, especially along the defensive line. They also added Roy Robertson-Harris from Jacksonville. I think Byron Murphy's going to come back. They got a couple guys back last week. So they should be healthier up front, where they just were completely decimated. Secondary is still a concern. It's Wednesday, so we don't know. I'm hoping that Reek Woolen is back. He's playing. He's playing at an all-pro level.
And Drake London is playing at an all-pro level too. So that's really what makes it even more important.
Yeah, if this was 2.5, I'd wait on Woolen's status, but at 3, I'm okay with his status in doubt. Because, Woolen this year, lowest completion percentage allowed among all qualified cornerbacks, second lowest yards per target, and the lowest passer rating allowed, I think, under 3. So he's been dominant. He's big. So we'll see if he can go. But regardless, if he can't in Atlanta, look, Atlanta, all Atlanta does is play close games. And you could argue they could be, 6-0, 0-6? But they should have beat Carolina. But even that was kind of close in the 4th until that Dalton pick. But they could be 5-1. They could be 1-5. So this is still just, a middle of the road team in the NFL, maybe slightly above average from a power perspective. That's where I have Seattle at. And I think that even if Woolen's out, I do expect the Seattle defense to be better because they're healthier up front. Give McDonald extra time to prepare for this offense. But even if Atlanta has success on offense, I think Seattle can keep up. What has plagued Seattle this year? It's really been their offensive line, which had questions coming into the year. You have injury at right tackle. Well, now they're going up against a defensive line that is incapable of generating pressure. The Panthers are in a different stratosphere, but Falcons are second worst at 31st in pressure rate. So they can't get any pressure. Geno should be able to operate in a clean pocket. He has plenty of weapons to attack this Falcons secondary. So I like the buy low spot on Seattle here with much needed extra rest, and they should be healthier. Hope for Woolen back, but at a field goal, I have to take Seattle here. So give me the road Hawks.
Yeah, it'd be about time. Seattle's not this bad either. I think Geno Smith keeps throwing all these yards, and he's got 1 touchdown pass in every game. I don't even think he has multiple touchdown passes since week 1. If did he even get it? Let me see. Let's see.
Seahawks have also been
no multiple touchdown game for Geno.
Yeah, Seahawks have also been on both sides of the ball from an EPA perspective, one of the unluckiest teams in turnover margin in terms of EPA lost. I mean, think back to a couple of the games. Think about that Lions game when, they had almost 40 first downs. Key turning point in that game was when you got a bogus offensive pass interference in that game, which was huge. But the Metcalf fumble, and then he had another big fumble. So yeah, I think that there's some potential regression, some better health coming for Seattle. And like, what does Atlanta do in these games? Like when they win, they win on like a coup field goal by 1 or 2. So I think the 3 is super valuable here. Give me Seattle.
All right. Yeah, I don't hate it. Kind of tough handicap for me with Atlanta. Atlanta's still tough to kind of get a hand around, but I can't be mad at the taking the 3, especially on the road with a pretty solid Seattle team. For my first pick, I don't know if you're going to agree with this one, but this should be fun. For my first pick of the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack, the second overall, I'm going with the New York Jets -1.5 at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a couple of things stand out to me in this one. Number one, Jets, say what you want about the coaching staff, Woody Johnson, whatever. They're a more desperate team here. And you know that because the Steelers, I mean, they're coming off a win and they're talking about benching their quarterback, who happens to be the better quarterback, in my opinion, in Justin Fields. But this Jet team's played the 5th hardest schedule by DVOA. Pittsburgh's the 10th easiest. Devontae Adams, huge get, I think, for the Jets, because they say wins and losses aren't a quarterback stat, but the last 2 weeks, you could argue that the Jets' losses have been on Mike Williams and Mike Williams on himself. I mean, he ends the game with just a bad route in the Minnesota game that leads to a Rodgers pick, game over. Wide open for what should have been a touchdown in the Bills game, runs a bad route and then compounds it by falling down to try to adjust to the ball, pick, game over, essentially. So the fact that they're getting Devontae Adams means you have Adams, Wilson, and Lazard, Rodgers' buddy, who's playing a lot better this year, as your top 3. Pittsburgh, that's big against Pittsburgh because they're number 3 in DVOA against number 1 wideouts, but 19th against number 2s, 28th against number 3s, and 30th against running backs. So that kind of plays into the strength of the Jets. And Rodgers, he's frail. I know. He's 40. He's on the other side of 40. If he gets knocked out, you get Tyrod Taylor, throw him to an all-star cast of receivers, a guy who doesn't turn the ball over, and a guy who's mobile. So I'm not as worried about Rodgers getting knocked out in this game as I would be some starting quarterbacks against Pittsburgh. And then you go to the other side. Jets, number 6 in pressure rate on defense. But what's really going on with Pittsburgh and why I think that I want to fade them right now is because James Daniels, their guard, on IR with an Achilles injury. He had a 92.9 PFF grade, the best guard in football. Zach Frazier against the Raiders, their center,
been great,
gets hurt, 82.2 PFF grade, the 4th best center in football.
As a rookie,
yeah. And so you lose the best guard in football and the 4th best center in football to your interior line just in time to go up against Quinnen Williams, a Jets defense that is getting pressure. And the whole thing about benching Fields has been, well, he's missing open receivers, as in he's not throwing the ball to them. He's holding the ball. Well, you're going up against the Jets now. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, who's number 2 in coverage. And even Oliver's playing well in the slot. You're not going to have open receivers like that in this game anyway. So I consider any snaps that Justin Fields does not take under center in this game a gift from Mike Tomlin to the New York Jets. But Sean and I hit on this. There might be something to this. Mike Tomlin might be playing 4D chess. You put Russell Wilson out there to get clobbered against this Jet team. You fall back to 500, and then you have an excuse to play Fields for the rest of the year, and you can't say, well, you didn't.
Well, not 500, 4-3. They'd be 4-3.
4-3. Sorry. But you fall closer to 500. You fall back into the heat of that division race, but you have an excuse now because they had to have promised Wilson something. I don't know why we keep getting this like, oh, we got to start Wilson. But at the same time, the Steelers offense, they put 32 on the board against Vegas. They had 2 very short touchdown drives, short field touchdown drives. This was just not a good offensive performance for the Steelers, and they lose they lose their center after losing their guard, in week 4. So I think this is a Jet spot to get right. I think they're a more desperate team. I don't see them falling this deep in a hole. And Rodgers off a loss when he's favored by 6 points or less, or a dog, 29-16, 64% against the spread. So give me the Jets on the road.
Yeah, I like this. I want Wilson to start. I mean, look,
Yes.
but speaking, so I need confirmation there. Then I'll definitely play this. Probably play Jets money line.
I played money line. Yeah, for what it's worth, I did play money line. I just prefer that with when I can get a short money line, but I still like this inside a field goal. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean to pile onto my week from hell last week, I lost a teaser with the Raiders in a game where both teams basically had the same amount of yards, average the same yards per play, because there was a block punt.
Mm-hmm.
Fields threw a pick and got a awful roughing the passer call. Fields on a 3rd and 18 almost throws another pick, incomplete, another roughing the passer call. Those 3 plays led to 21 points for the Steelers. So just insane. But so yeah, it wasn't a great offensive performance, but I don't think Russ is going to give them much. And you just remove Fields' legs. Like,
yeah,
that's
big
all
in
you're
this
doing.
matchup with the line and the state it's in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I would really love this if Russ starts. And what would the percentage chances you give that Russ starts?
Right now, I would say it's like 60-40 because they're giving them first team reps. And I just think there was something in the preseason. The minute they said Russ is our unquestioned starter, the minute he signed, and they weren't paying him no money, in my head, I'm like, there must have been some assurances given to his agent. And, Tomlin is a guy, you see they respect veterans in Pittsburgh. They do things the right way. I could see them giving him some type of assurances. And then I think this injury was blown out of proportion. Like, I don't think Russell Wilson was nearly as hurt as he said he was, but I think his camp had no incentive to downplay it because it would just make him look worse. Like, oh, he can't beat out Justin Fields. So I feel like no one wanted to say that he wasn't really that hurt. Just like Devontae Adams is magically healthy now and he's going to play. It's like, I just don't buy it. And I think that Mike Tomlin saying, all right, you know what? If we're going to give Russ a chance, let's give him a chance against the toughest defense we've faced. And that way, if he shits the bed, I can go back to Fields and no one's on my tail about it. So, I think there's a lot of things kind of working in the Jets' favor beyond the scenes in this one.
Yeah, Devontae Adams, he already has rapport with Rodgers. Offense with terminology you'll be familiar with.
He's not Mike Williams. That's the
Mike Williams is. That's what I was gonna say. Mike Williams is washed. So just the upgrade
my God
is massive. All right. Yeah. So for my second pick and the third overall, the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns plus 6.5 at home against Cincinnati Bengals. I bet too good of a team with Seattle. Got to go back to an ugly dog here with Cleveland. Back to my comfort zone, and fortunately, it's not Tennessee. So I just think this
Carolina's +8 this week.
This line is way too high. It jumped 2 points when the news of Amari Cooper broke. Amari Cooper's he's been one of the worst receivers in the NFL this year, like on a non-existent passing offense. Like, how much is a receiver in the Browns? How much could they be worth, even if Cooper was, playing to his peak all year? First of all, I like this under. I think it's going to be a super low scoring game. Here's the Browns' path. And by the way, the Browns are getting healthier elsewhere. Their defense looks like it's going to be as healthy as it's been in a while.
Chubb.
You're going to get Chubb back 10 to 15 carries, I'd expect there. And you have your tackles are back.
Conklin is so big. Conklin is just like the Jones, everyone's dissing Watson and for good reason, but like that dude Jones could not block a fly. So yeah, Conklin back is massive.
Yeah, and the one I do worry about the center position. Bocic in a brace today. Backup is hurt, although it doesn't really matter. I mean, what is the drop? So you might have like a backup guard in at center. That does concern me, but the offensive line is as healthy as it's been. And what the Browns have started to do last week against Philadelphia is they went back more to the Stefanski offense, right? And we talked about this. I don't think that Watson can run. They're trying to have him run this non-Stefanski offense. It's like spread attack, and he's just not good enough to do that. So without Cooper, I think they lean into that even more, which I think can work against Cincinnati. So more runs, just more throws to tight ends, more heavy sets. Those are things that you can do against Cincinnati. And by the way, the Bengals, all they do is play close games all year. I know they covered last week, but they broke a run to cover in New York, and they were laying 4 there. Now in the divisional game in Cleveland, second straight road game, you're laying 6.5. I can't get to this number. Burrow has also struggled historically against this Cleveland defense. He's 1-5 in his career, 1-3 over the past 3 seasons with 1-3 with 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. That's it. Myles Garrett has just owned the team. And look, you could say the Browns are going to quit, but I don't think they're on quit watch. They showed up last week in Philly, and these teams hate each other. Like, this is a divisional game. They're not going to quit. They're going to show up here. Maybe they lose this game and they trade more players. But I think this is a good spot to buy the Browns. There's some matchup advantages here. The script Stefanski usually has a good script. Steal a score early on your script with your more heavy personnel sets, and then I think that this defense can battle with Cincinnati in what should be a lower scoring game. We'll talk about that later as a little teaser, but which I think makes the home underdog in a divisional game even more valuable. So yeah, I like the Browns here at catching 6.5.
Yeah, I'm considering this. It's always, I have a different play on this game, so I think I'm going to find a different way to invest. But
because they're correlated. I'm going to be on and as well. Like, if this is high scoring, the Bengals
favors the Bengals.
Are covered.
Yeah. All right, for my second pick, I'm actually going to go. We talked about this off air. I'm actually going to go the opposite way, just because being a Giants fan and kind of knowing this team, I actually feel good about this pick more than my third. So I'm going to go with this one for my second and the fourth overall of the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack. I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles -3 at the New York Giants. And there's injuries on both sides. Let's be clear. Philadelphia, big loss. Jordan Mailata, their tackle. He's huge. And Goddard I think he left after a few plays. He's not looking good either. Now, on the Giants side, I think the injuries are bigger. You could get Neighbors back. That's fine. But you lost Andrew Thomas. And Andrew Thomas is just so essential to this offense functioning. Daniel Jones under pressure, terrible. But more than that, just the way you have to kind of babysit the play calls when Andrew Thomas is out of the lineup, I think hampers this offense, even when you have a guy like Neighbors. Because, let's remember, you had Neighbors against the Cowboys, and what'd you do? Kick 5 field goals? You had Neighbors against Washington. What'd you get? 3 scores. He scored 3 scoring drives. He's not Superman. He's gonna make a difference here. But I think this Philly team is still underrated in the market because, first of all, yes, Mailata's big loss, but Jalen Hurts this year is 4th in the league in completion rate over expectation. 4th in the league. A.J. Brown missed 3 games. Devontae Smith missed a game and a quarter. Goddard essentially missed the whole game last week. So I think Jalen Hurts is going to slowly kind of make strides. I think everyone's given Philadelphia just too much crap for barely beating the Browns last week. They got a blocked field goal that the Browns returned for a touchdown. That's a 10-point swing. You put those scores up the other way, it very well ends, 23-9 or something like that. So I'm not knocking the Philadelphia Eagles that much for their performance last week out of the bye. And you look at what they did against a Cleveland team with no O-line. They didn't give up an offensive touchdown. They gave up 244 total yards, 4.6 yards a play. Against New Orleans with no offensive line, Philly gave up 12 points, 212 total yards, 4 yards a play. So I think the Philadelphia defense shows up. And by the way, the Giants, their defense, Thibodeau, is on IR. Brian Burns missed practice Wednesday and Dexter Lawrence missed practice. Now, I expect those guys to play, but they did play in a Sunday night. So you never know with these injury situations. So definitely something to monitor there because I think that would make it even more dire for the Giants, who, by the way, are giving up They're bottom 3 in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks this year. So I don't think this is a good matchup at all for the Giants. I think Philadelphia, I don't think they've won by more than a possession in over a year or something. I think this might be the game they get right. And Daniel Jones, always a fade at home, 14-19 against the spread at home, failing to cover by 3.8 points a game in his career, 42% against the spread. In a second straight home game, Daniel Jones is 1-4 against the spread, failing to cover by 6.2 points a game. I'll take the Eagles.
I disagree.
I know. I figured that.
But I want 3.5, and I want to see these defensive injuries. But look, both teams are going to be missing their left tackle. That's going to lead to pressure, I think, on both ends. Neither quarterback has been good under pressure. Jalen Hurts has been a disaster under pressure this year. I mean, a disaster. Worst quarterback in the league.
But he hasn't had his guys.
Yeah, I mean, but I still two big-time throws under pressure, completing 50% of his passes, 8 turnover-worthy plays. It's been bad, and it's been bad for a while now. And this Philly team, we're over we're close to a full season of very underwhelming results. I think Nick Sirianni is a clown, and he will probably make some bad decisions in this game. So I trust the Giants staff more. And this defense is a little underrated because, if they have their pieces up front, I know Thibodeau won't be there, but they can get pressure. And without Goddard, without Mailata, and on the other side of the ball, this Eagles defense has been extremely underwhelming. I think the Giants, with their short passing attack, with their just enough in the ground game, can have success. And Philly doesn't have the same type of pass disruptors and habit creators as the Giants do, and that ultimately might be the difference. But
Philly,
I need
Philly against teams with bad O-lines. Like New Orleans was coming off 240 burgers. Their offensive line is decimated, and Philly gives up nothing to them. Cleveland, another team, decimated O-line. Philly gives up nothing to them. I feel like Fangio could handle these kind of teams. I'm not saying go out there and lay points in Philly and against a solid team, but this Giant team at home with no left tackle. They went 2-4 against the spread without Andrew Thomas last year. I just think this is the kind of matchup that Philly dominates in.
Could be, but I just haven't seen anything from Philly that gives me confidence in wanting to lay points on the road with them.
That's why. That's fair.
But I need 3.5. That's why I will say that. But I lean the other way. All right, for my third pick and the 5th overall of the Sunday 6-pack, I'm looking for my clown mask. I'm going
with the Panthers or the Titans? No, I was kidding.
I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers -1 at home against Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, I'm fading Patrick Mahomes as an underdog. What is he, 12-3 against the spread as a dog in his career? First of all, I have San Fran power rated as #1 team in the NFL. And this is a spread that's below where it was in the Super Bowl, and it's in San Francisco. And I think Kansas City is much worse. I shouldn't say much worse, but they have many more deficiencies than that team we saw win the Super Bowl. #1, Travis Kelce's not the same player was. He'll probably get there by the end of the season and flip a switch, but he's just traveling around the world with Taylor Swift. He's not in game shape. He does no burst. You don't have Rashee Rice. You don't have Pacheco. The defense, I think, is more vulnerable on the back end without Snead. So this team is, I think, much worse than San Fran is compared to the rosters that we saw. And you're getting a better price, and you're getting San Francisco at home as the more desperate team with Super Bowl revenge in a game they lost in overtime. And you look at these, you could say, all right, the Chiefs are 5-0. They could easily, you changed 3 plays, they're 2-3. A toe, it wasn't guaranteed that the Ravens win that game, but a toe, the pass interference.
Yeah,
and
Bengals.
On the Bengals game on a 4th and long. There's also a defensive score that they got late in that game. And pick multiple 4th downs or the bogus non-called pass interference in the end zone against Atlanta. They lose that game. And this team's sitting at 2-3. And San Francisco, on the other hand, they're 3-3. They have 3 double-digit wins, and the Chiefs, 4 of their 5 wins have come by 1 possession. Their 1 win against New Orleans, I was like, oh, their offense looked a little better. Well, look what happened last week to that New Orleans team. They gave up 50+ to Baker Mayfield. Doesn't look as good. And it wasn't like the Chiefs were lighting the world on fire in that game. And San Francisco has 3 double-digit wins, and they lost to the undefeated Vikings, and 2 games that were just improbable losses. Up double digits late against the Rams. Don't have a kicker, so you blow a double-digit lead late to the Cardinals. So they easily, or should be, in my opinion, they should be 5-1. I think the Chiefs, like, you play out their schedule, they're probably 4-2. Like, they're going to win more 1-possession games than not. So I trust the San Francisco passing attack more. They have running back injuries. I don't really think we've seen it doesn't really matter who's in there at running back. I'm not sure if Mason's going to play. But the Chiefs' pass defense, I think, has not yet been full. We saw Burrow carve them up all day. And, Lamar had success. And since then, I mean, if you look, even Kirk Cousins was even moving the ball he lost 2 of his starting offensive linemen mid-game. How many times we saw them play the Chargers without their offensive linemen? And then who else? The Saints without some of their offensive linemen. So their defensive metrics, I think, are a bit inflated, especially against the run, because they keep playing teams that are missing offensive linemen, which won't be the case here. So I still think that they're much more vulnerable against the run than their metrics may indicate. But more importantly, Brock Purdy, who's playing at an extremely high level right now, has all his weapons on the outside healthy. I think he can attack this Chiefs secondary, which is a much more attackable unit than we saw in the Super Bowl last year. I know Andy Reid's coming off of a bye. San Francisco also coming off of the mini bye here. I think San Francisco gets their revenge at home as the more desperate team, sitting at 3-3. This Chiefs offense has been getting away with it so far. I don't think the defense can fully keep San Francisco in check. And I don't think that this current version, when you account for all the injuries, still issues at the tackle positions, I don't think that they're, just no explosiveness at all. I don't think that they can keep up with San Francisco here. You got Mahomes. I mean, the spread's 1. You're gonna have a chance to win this game, and maybe the special teams go awry. Chiefs have an advantage there, but I had this spot circled for San Francisco. The way that these teams have started has made it even juicier for me. So I like the 49ers at home. Curious to get your thoughts here.
The Niners are the right side. This kind of falls into the same category as what we talked about with Dallas and Detroit last week. It's like, I thought the power rating wise, projection wise, like it was Dallas. I think it's San Francisco here. I just don't bet against Mahomes as a dog off principle. You have the cojones. I applaud you for that. I think that, like, you really just hope the referees don't get in the way in this one too, because San Francisco's the better team. I mean, San Francisco is their offense is
an healthier team,
right? Yeah, but just look at their pass offense. Purdy's second in the league in yards an attempt at 8.8. Mahomes, he's throwing underneath and short. I mean, they got 130 yards from Juju last game. Like, that's not going to repeat. He averages 1.6 yards a route. He had 29 routes in that game. 1.6 yards a route. His expectation is 47 yards. He got a $130. Like, that's, that should have probably told us more about the Saints defense. And they're like, they were on the verge of unraveling against the Bucs than anything. So I think
Kelsey is not who he was last year in the playoffs. Like, he's no burst, no separation. He'll get his catches, but he's not playoff Kelsey right now. I think San Fran is clearly the better team right now, and they're at home. If I was setting this mark, the whole world would bet the Chiefs, but I would.
That's the tough. It's a 3. It's a 2.5, 3. It's definitely like the Chiefs. There's no way you could say the Chiefs are better than they were in the Super Bowl, especially without Rashid Rice. Like, I don't care how many yards Juju put up. The run defense is number 2. That doesn't, like you said, that doesn't seem like accurate. Like, that doesn't seem like something that's going to hold up long term. The pass defense isn't as good, though. Neither is Snead, so maybe they dodged a bullet there. Because Snead is, I think, been grading out as the worst corner in football. the Niners are the better
Yeah,
team.
their run
and they're at
defense
home, and
metrics
they're at
are
home.
inflated because of the offensive line injuries that they
Yeah.
faced.
Now you do have the Chiefs off a bye, and that helps and whatnot. And you probably have the refs on the Chiefs side, which helps. But yeah, I just don't. I'm just not doing it. I think Mahomes is 11-1 regular season against the spread as a dog. Like it's just not a bet I want to make. But the Niners are the right side. Like the Niners are the side.
I mean, it is one. I mean, so
Yeah.
like if it maybe I'll have a better chance if I finally get if I get a bad number for once and if it flips the Chiefs
Yeah.
-1,
Yeah,
then I'm gonna win.
Yeah.
So
maybe.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, eventually the Chiefs aren't gonna get every call. Like at the end of the game, but who knows?
Yeah, I'm
had a rough week, so what am I what am
Yeah,
I doing? I'm fading
for
Patrick
punishment.
Mahomes as an underdog.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm going to take the opposite side of this kind of situation here. And I'm going to go with, for my third and final pick in the 6th overall of the Week 7 6-pack, the Detroit Lions plus 2.5 against the Minnesota Vikings, the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. I don't think we'll get a 3. I haven't bet it yet. But I don't think we'll get a 3. I'm holding out.
Might as well wait.
Yeah, right. But it doesn't make me feel good because the public is on the Lions side. But at the same time, this team is just a cover machine. They are 39-17 under Dan Campbell, 70% against the spread, 22-10, 69% as an underdog, 8-1 last 9 as an underdog. And the Vikings are 5-0 against the spread. Those teams at home are 40-52, 44% over the last 2 decades. But really the tough thing for Detroit is Aiden Hutchinson. That's key. But you look at these two teams. Detroit is 4th in offensive DVOA, 4th in defense, 8th on special teams. Minnesota, 18th on offense, 1st on defense, 9th on special teams. So the weakest unit in this game is still the Minnesota offense. Detroit playing better than expected defensively. You know, that they'll probably come back down to earth a little bit without Hutchinson, but I still trust Goff indoors more than I trust Darnold, even against this Brian Flores defense, because the one thing about this Brian Flores defense is all year long, they've been able to get pressure. Going up against this Lion offensive line, which is arguably the best in football, that's not going to happen at nearly the same rate. Minnesota's defense, when getting pressure, just absurd. 3.0 yards an attempt, minus 0.79 EPA per dropback. That's just absurd. Every time a team drops back when Minnesota gets pressure, they're giving up 1/8 of a point. Like, just do the math on that if you get a few pressures in the game. Well, when Minnesota doesn't get pressure, 7.4 yards an attempt, and offenses are gaining 0.09 EPA per dropback. So completely different unit if Goff isn't under pressure. I think Detroit will be able to protect well enough here. And Detroit still leads the league in offensive early down success rate. It's really unfortunate what happened to Aiden Hutchinson. So this makes Detroit have to win in a shootout. But I still trust Detroit in a shootout indoors over Sam Darnold, a.k.a. Sam Bradford. So give me the Lions. And everyone wants to talk about the script, you know, like the NFL's fixed. Well, if the NFL is fixed, Detroit's winning this game. I already mentioned that teams that are 5-0 against the spread cover at a horrible rate. Also, the NFL assigned Clay Martin to this game. Underdogs in Clay Martin refereed games are 61% against the spread, 57-37. Road underdogs in Clay Martin refereed games are 40-17, 70%. Road underdogs are as good as the Detroit Lions have been under Dan Campbell, under Clay Martin. So, like, the script says Detroit wins here and Minnesota is not undefeated when this is all said and done. So it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a sweat. Give me the Lions.
I can't get there at 3. I can see it. By the way, you mentioned refs. Oof, that Bills-Jets game. One of the worst officiated games I've ever watched in my life.
I don't even want to think about that game.
These procedural penalties, some of these roughing the passer calls, we gotta have a solution. But anyway, I mean, look, the Hutchinson loss is major. He was such a critical part of everything that they wanted to do because they want to play coverage they want to play a lot of man on the back end. They're relying on him getting pressure. I mean, who's getting pressure now for them? Because they already lost Davenport. It's a position that they didn't have great depth at. So I mean, that's why you hear rumblings of like, who are they going to go out and get? Because you're down to who? Because you have other injuries there. I mean, what, James Houston and Josh Pascal?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a shootout. They're not getting pressure. But Darnold from a clean pocket is still no guarantee. Like that's kind of the issue with him. That's why Minnesota's sitting here 18th in offensive DVOA. Darnold's just not a guarantee even versus a clean pocket. I'm just betting on Detroit's offense indoors.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that this is a tough game for me because, I mean, is Aaron Jones going to go? The Minnesota offense is just not the same without Aaron Jones. We saw that in the game against the Packers overseas when he got hurt. But you can't really run on Detroit.
Oh, Jets. Excuse me. The Packers, they blew. Yeah, you said the Packers.
The Jets.
They blew out
the Jets.
Well, they didn't blow out the Packers. They almost blew out the Packers, and then
against the Jets, we saw the offense just wasn't the same. But you can't really run on Detroit. It's a pass penalty. So maybe without Jones or a non-healthy Jones, you throw more, which is what you want to do against this Detroit secondary, which I still think has questions, and now you won't have the pressure of Hutchinson. The Detroit offense is humming right now, but we saw them look just off to start the year. Maybe that was a little fluky. They've been dominant the past 2 weeks, but they played a Seattle team without a number of starters, a decimated Dallas defense. So is their offense somewhere in between there? And this Minnesota defense has been historically good so far. Flores extra time to prepare. Can he turn Goff into a pumpkin? That would concern me. And this is purely on vibes. The Vikings just strike me as a team that's going to start like 10-0 and then lose in the first round of the playoffs. Like that's just how that's just the vibes I get. I mean, it doesn't go into any of my handicap, but if they win this game and they're favored to do so, they got the Rams next, the Colts at home, the Jags, who could be just in the tank by then, the Titans, the Bears, the Cardinals at home, the Falcons at home, the Bears at home, at Seattle. So like
they might go undefeated if they win this game.
And then the last two are home against the Packers and at the Lions now. Man. So yeah, they have the vibes of a team that's gonna. It means nothing,
Detroit
but I'm just telling you.
Too, though. Detroit, I mean, they're out here giving up touchdowns just so they can get offensive linemen into the end zone on the road. Like, I mean, like. I just don't think Minnesota starts 6-0 against the spread and 6-0 straight up. I don't think they're that good.
So maybe we're both right. Maybe we're both right. They win by 1.
Yeah. I can see that.
They can thread the needle. I'm not betting. I'm not betting Minnesota -2.5. But I'm just curious to watch this game.
All right, that is gonna do it for the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack. You have the Seahawks +3, Browns 6.5, Niners -1 I have the Jets -1.5, Eagles -3, and the Lions +2.5. So let's see, that's Geno, Deshaun, and Purdy.
That's
Rodgers,
as good as it gets for me.
And Goff. Yeah. Oh yeah, we got some quarterback this week. That means we're going 0-6 again.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's our Week 7 Sunday 6-pack. Now it's time.